Listen to me. Just because you survived Raccoon City does not make you a top tier protagonist. Half of these people are walking meat shields who only live because of pure unadulterated plot armor. We literally have bio weapon slaying gods on one end of the spectrum and absolute dead weight liabilities on the other. So today we're taking every single major Resident Evil protagonist, scaling their raw combat feats and lower accurate power levels and getting them ranked and explained. And look, I'm just going to warn you right now, you are going to be absolutely furious when you see where I put Leon Kennedy. But I don't care, the stats speak for themselves, so go ahead and yell at me in the comments. Let's start at the absolute bottom of the garbage pile with number 15. And right off the bat, I'm going to have to lie to you because we're not starting with number 15. I'm going to throw down a little bit of honorable mentions with the survivors from Resident Evil Outbreak. The only reason they're on this list is because with Resident Evil 9 out, Grace's mom, Alyssa, was one of the survivors from there, and I figured it'd be a little bit not proper of me to leave them off the list. So, honorable mention to Resident Evil Outbreak. Now, before we get much further, I know many of you will ask, Alden, why the hell are we talking about Resident Evil? Aren't you usually a Limbus or Elden Ring or some kind of RPG channel? And normally, I would have to agree, yes, this is a bit weird, but I have been playing a absolute buttload of freaking Resident Evil 9 recently, and have been loving the hell out of it. Everything from the awesome little stealth sections that you get to play as with Grace, the little bit of story tie back that the game has to the previous Resident Evils, and even the badass sections that we have with Leon. Everything about this game is just firing on all cylinders, to the fact that I've annoyed a friend of mine because we were playing Neo 3, but Resident Evil's kind of taken over my primary game recently. So after I get done doing this voiceover, I'm going to go over and play some Neo with him so he doesn't beat my ass. Anyway, speaking of Resident Evil 9 characters, we're going to move on to number 15 with Grace. Well, if supposedly I liked Resident Evil 9 so much, why the hell is Grace number 15? And it comes down to some very simple things, guys. First off, while she is an FBI agent, she's only a technical analyst. So she's got some firearms training, but according to the lore of the game, the gun that she had in the beginning of the game is something she had to pay for herself. So despite being FBI, she doesn't even get a standard issue firearm. She is highly intelligent. We cannot take that away from her. In fact, she does figure out the cover up for both the Baker's family and the Umbrella experiments. Of course, it was with a little bit of help from her mother from the grave, who happened to be an investigative journalist when she was alive. So, you know, a little bit of column A and a little bit of column B there. The problem with Grace is that even though, yes, she was surviving, none of the big bad guys wanted her to die. Gideon was using her for experimentation to see if he could finish what his master had started. And Zeno thought for some stupid reason she had some password in her head for a supercomputer for some super weapon that he could use to take over the world. Well, that explains what she can do and why she's not further on the list, but what did she actually survive? And what were the hardships she had to face? I would say she survived the wormwood outbreak, but the only cool thing we get here is that there is a small chance that she might be immune to the T-virus, or at least this strain of it. It could just be that this strain is not transmittable via bite, but she does get bitten in the arm, she doesn't turn. However, there is the guy just like 5 minutes later that gets bitten on the nose and doesn't turn. The reason I say just kind of when it comes to wormwood is because after in any other of the zombie outbreaks getting bitten, which would have turned her, she proceeds to stumble across Gideon, which then chokes her out and proceeds to just kind of kidnap her, causing the wormwood outbreak on the way out. So it wasn't so much of a survival, it was one zombie that she didn't see coming. Now, when it comes to true survival, she does survive the Rhodes Hill Hospital and the new Raccoon Arch incident. However, with the Arch incident, she has Zeno protecting her. The zombies that she does face are a little bit more intelligent than your average zombies. They're able to speak a little bit still. Some of them can use weapons. They still throw things. They're not as intelligent as the 𝐜𝐴𝐼𝐷o that came before them, but they are still able to use basic tools and remember what they were doing before One of her most memorable fights is against a creature named Chunk, which takes 3 shots in the ass and poof, they're gone. So again, not the scariest, not the hardest, not even the toughest to bring down foes in the franchise, and that's why Grace falls into the 15th slot. When I mention Resident Evil, one of 2 things probably pop into your mind. And if I were to bring up the mold incident from Resident Evil 7 this early in the video, you guys would crucify me. So, obviously, our 14th survivor survived the second and probably the most well-known event in all of RE history in the Raccoon City incident. The funny thing about Carlos Oliveira is that he is one of 2, according to the directors, disliked characters in the franchise, and that's why he's never made a reappearance. However, if you look at Carlos, he parallels everyone's favorite character from the franchise a lot. Like Leon, this was his first day of actual work for the BCS, or Umbrella Biohazard Countermeasure Service, which is essentially a fancy title for grunts. However, unlike Leon, Carlos was trained in guerrilla tactics from a young age and was essentially a child soldier and criminal who got recruited and saved by a bribe to a certain government for Umbrella's services. This allowed Umbrella to give him a little bit more training and way better equipment to jump into the Raccoon City incident. Grenades, machine guns, a pistol, some body armor, and he thought he was bulletproof. But, you know, when you got exposed skin, every bite becomes a challenge and a death sentence at the same time. Now, to be fair, Grace did have more intelligent zombies to go up against. However, no way did any of her locations have the numbers of zombies or the variety of zombies that Carlos had to deal with. By the time Carlos got to Raccoon City, it had quickly become a testing ground for Umbrella. They were releasing lickers, hunters, and even the most dangerous thing that they had in their entire arsenal at the time, the Nemesis. Before the Nemesis, you had what were called tyrants, and the tyrants were essentially lower brain capacity super zombies with a giant weak spot in the middle of their chest. Then they created what everyone loves with the Mr. X and the X gonna give it to ya fucking memes that came out from RE2 and the RE2 remake. But Nemesis was like taking Mr. X, implanting him with an increased intelligence, and setting it on a mission to take out all STARS units, who Carlos just so happened to team with, one of the last remaining STARS units in the city with Jill. And honestly, his time surviving Raccoon City probably would have been a little bit easier had Jill not been around him at all. The only thing he would have had to worry about at that point was his commander betraying and shooting him for Umbrella secrets that he was trying to sell for, you know, massive profits. When it comes to certain characters on this list, a night, a day maybe was the longest they had to deal with any of their hardships. But when it comes to Carlos, he got dropped into Raccoon City on September 26th and survived all the way to the morning of October 1st. That is essentially 5 days in a zombie-filled hellhole that he had to hold out with his small team as they slowly got whittled down to just him and Jill. And then he got the hell out of Dodge before a nuke blew up the entire city. Yay! The problem with Carlos is that afterwards he just disappears. According to some files we find later, he kind of went to South America, got a face change, changed his name, and now he's living down there in peace. We no longer have to worry about him. He's out of the story. Is the official story. But Capcom says he is one of the most disliked characters, so that's probably the real reason they won't bring him back. I personally like this character. Don't know why he got so much hate. However, unlike our 14th spot with Carlos, our 13th spot is another character who a lot of people are going to ask, who the fuck is this? With Billy Cohen. Now, for those of you who know, you know that Billy is kind of a badass, but he's also on the list of characters that supposedly nobody likes and Capcom will never bring back. Billy was a character in the prequel game Resident Evil 0 alongside Rebecca Chambers. As these games often do, some mad scientist was experimenting on, well in this case, leeches, got put down by the USS or Umbrella security surface, which, fun fact, Hunk is a part of originally. So why is some dude who just survived a train incident higher up on this list than somebody who survived an entire city? Well, let me ask you this, assholes. What's harder to survive in? An entire city with plenty of running room, or a very claustrophobic train with millions of leeches trying to come through the windows at you and infect you that are controlled by a genius intellect of a mad scientist? Now, honestly, Billy Cohen could have been way higher up on this list if it wasn't for, one small thing, and that's most of his special infected are weak as shit. Yeah, they've got a genius level intellect leading them, but eliminators are some infected apes. Who cares? You got a plague crawler and a giant frog and an insect wearing heavy armor, but again, it's nothing compared to some of the later units. Lurkers are nothing compared to hunters. And Billy only had to fight a proto-tyrant, not even a good enough model to be considered for the first game. So, when it comes to all that, that is why Billy Cohen falls into the number 13 spot. We go from a badass Marine to a member of the BSAA and possibly Chris's gay twink lover in the number 12 spot with Piers. And considering so many of our people on this list are part of the BSAA, I'm just going to go over quickly what they are. They are the Bioterrorism Security Assessment Alliance. And basically, they just go around and make sure pharmaceutical companies ain't being Umbrella 2.0. They're highly trained and highly organized, almost a military force, one would say. And as such, every person on this list who is part of that has a little bit of backup from a lot of firepower. With all that being said, Piers went on quite a few investigatory missions with Chris Redfield. He had to go up against the mastermind of a fake Ada Wong in 𝐜𝐨𝐴𝐬𝐿. But always he was next to his much stronger bear of a man, Chris Redfield. Together they fought against several special BOWs, massive Goliaths known as 𝐜𝐨𝐧𝐭𝐤 but on steroids, and C virus variants that were more intelligent and highly more subject to mutation. Sadly though, in the end, Piers ends up falling to a massive BOW known as House. While it did not kill him, it forced himself to be injected with the C virus vial that they had on them, which mutated him, and as such he sacrificed himself to make sure that Chris escaped from the mission alive. Considering that Piers did not make it, I cannot put him further on this list, and that is why he is number 12. When I say the name Helena, what do you guys think? I know a small bit of you guys think of a song by My Chemical Romance, and no, it's not that. This is Helena Harper, and sadly, yes, she is the second person who's worked with Leon, and the first time I've realized that Leon seems to get all the hot bitches in every one of his games. I'll elaborate on that as we get deeper into this video, but yeah. A good portion of Resident Evil 6 is caused due to the fact that a man named Derek Simmons abducts Helena's sister and blackmails her in order to help unleash the C virus outbreak that would turn the president into a zombie. This woman don't have Marine training, she's got some US Secret Service training, which is good. Again, C virus zombies are far more intelligent than T virus zombies. She ends up surviving across multiple continents in this game, but her biggest achievement is essentially having the last smack on Mr. Derek Simmons, the one who betrayed her in the first place, and the reason that he dies in the end. Honestly though, she falls into the category of Leon's here, I'm safe, more so than into the category of I am a badass character. So that is why she falls into the 11th spot, and I can't really bring myself to put her further up on this list. Guys, did you need more proof that Leon has all the hot chicks? This character doesn't need an introduction, for they have been in almost more content than any of the other characters on this list. Has she survived due to skill, or has it been luck? Who am I talking about? Everyone's favorite redhead in the franchise, Claire Redfield. And I was not joking when I said that this woman has been through some of the most events. She has survived the Raccoon City incident in the RE2 and RE2 remakes. She survived an entire island prison in Code Veronica and then an Arctic base in the same game. She survived all the events of the Dark Side Chronicles, another island in Revelations 2. Then she was in the movie Degeneration, where she survived an airport being overran by zombies. She also appeared in Infinite Darkness and, for fuck's sake, another island in the movie Death Island, where she went to Alcatraz. So this woman has been on a lot of islands and survived a lot of shit. She has one of the most badass moves that have ever been done in one of the Resident Evil games, where she kind of just drops her gun, falls down sideways, grabs it, and takes out a freaking group of enemies and blows up some barrels behind them. It was so badass that it had to be replicated in so many movies, including the live-action Resident Evil movies. That's all cool, but what did she survive? Well, guys, when I said she survived the events of Raccoon City, she survived against lickers, hordes of zombies, inside of a cramped police station, inside of the damn nest. She did so many different events. She fought Mr. X a little bit, which is what the tyrant in the second game was known as by the fans. She was also instrumental in taking down William Birkin, who was a G virus infected abomination who was constantly after somebody else who's further up on this list, his own daughter, Sherry Birkins. Unlike a lot of the other side characters that hang out with Leon on this list, she did a lot of what she did in her game alone. She would meet back up with Leon from time to time, but she tended to be very resourceful. In Code Veronica, she was stuck on a prison island where another T-virus outbreak happened, and she survived basically by herself, but with a very arrogant, very cocky teenage boy who loved to dual-wield Lugers. After getting off that island, she ended up in an Arctic base and ran into her brother, and a lot of people say, well, Chris did all the heavy lifting, but between the two of them, they took out a very intelligent, super genius level tyrant infected by the T Veronica virus, who had had time to essentially let it properly go through her body so that she could control the mutations. With said mutations, she was able to reach out and flip a snowcat that was already several kilometers away from their base. The sheer amount of things that I could talk about that Claire Redfield has had to survive is staggering, considering she's been in so much of the media. However, she's gone through liquor, she's gone through tyrants, she's gone through mutated abominations. She took on something the size of a submarine inside of Death Island, along with Leon, Chris, Jill, and Rebecca Chambers. She has been around for a while, and she will continue to be around for a while. However, due to her lack of training and the fact that she always does seem to have somebody that's more main roster there in a lot of her games to help her out, it does lead to the fact that she is not one of the greatest survivors and has the ability to actually handle the situations as well, and that's why she falls into the number 10th spot on this list. Now guys, I could be argued with that Claire should be in the number 9 position over this character, but this character did manage to survive for several days in a very desolate desert and swampy wasteland alongside Chris Redfield, and that person is Sheva Alomar. With Chris being depressed due to what happened in the DLC of the 5th Resident Evil game with Jill being lost, Sheva basically becomes a pseudo replacement with a different attitude for Jill Valentine. She also has BSAA training along with other people that have already been on this list, and the primary reason I put her ahead of Claire on this list was, yes, Claire survived a city, but Sheva survived basically a small nation full of infected people coming after her. Her zombies were able to do things like wield massive machine guns, mutate into abomination insects, she fought tyrants, she fought massive BOWs. For some reason, the Resident Evil franchise likes to throw something in a lake or in freaking a deep body of water to fuck with you, albeit giant sharks, giant freaking slug monsters, or in this case, just a sleazeball who infected himself with some Ouroboros. Her zombies were intelligent enough to organize attacks on you, and the Lost Plaga strand was also used here along with Ouroboros, which allowed for little creatures to jump out and infect you, so she had that going for her too. However, the primary reason I put her into pulling ahead of Claire on this list was because with her help, Chris Redfield was able to finally beat Albert Wesker, which is probably the toughest enemy to actually ever appear in a Resident Evil game. Now guys, the number 8 position might piss some of you off because you're going to ask me, how the hell does this character get pulled ahead of both Claire and Sheva? And if we went with just the games, Rebecca Chambers would probably be much lower on this list. However, this character has had a lot of time to shine in the movies, proving that she is one of the greatest female survivors in the Resident Evil franchise. She was the youngest person to ever join the STARS program and actually be accepted into it and all the training and all that good stuff. Yes, she was the medic, but she still had to go through the weapons training to become a STARS member. She's an advisor to the BSAA, and she's a genius level scientist in her own right. Everything I said for Billy Cohen applies here, because she survived the train in RE0 also, but she was also in the Umbrella Chronicles, where she survived a bunch of incidents there. However, like I said earlier, her moments where she really shone were in the movie Vendetta and in the other movie, Death Island, her 2 movie appearances. And the main reason, the number 1 reason that I'm putting her ahead of both Claire and Sheva is due to the fact that in Vendetta, while infected with a version of the A virus, which is essentially a T virus strain that can be activated with another gas or chemical or whatnot, she was able to, while infected, create a cure for a virus she had just found out about literally like 5 minutes earlier. Not only that, she was the only person to survive her entire research facility being hit with said gas attack. So despite all the monstrosities, the BOWs that she fought on the train, the intelligent zombies again on the train, and the fact that even though she wasn't a playable character in Resident Evil 1, she did survive the mansion incident alongside Jill and Chris, I'm giving her the number 8 spot on this list. You guys remember earlier when I made the little snide comment that if I'd put the fungus that early on the list, you would have killed me? Well, this is as far as Ethan Winters is going to get. I get it. He doesn't survive to the end of his own story, and neither did Piers. And I know a lot of you guys like Ethan Winters. He's a good family guy. He said it. But I can't move him any further up on this list, guys. I really cannot. Yes, he survives a whole bunch of stuff, and I'll get into that in a second, but he dies, and I can't put him in the top 5, and the next 2 people on the list I think have survived more. So 7 is literally the best I can give a man who didn't survive to the end of, to now in this franchise. So this man has some very basic firearms training when he actually enters into the first of his situations against the Bakers. No more than an average civilian, nothing crazy. He's not some gun nut living in the woods. He's a family guy. When it comes to survivability, Ethan is not the sharpest knife in the fucking drawer, alright? This guy goes into 2 events, essentially, with no weapons to start off with. Yes, he quickly gets some, but, I mean, jumping in, you don't really have anything when you enter the baker's house, okay? And when he enters Romania after an attack, he gets a gun, but Romania... How many people in Romania have guns? If you're from Romania, let me know in the comment section below, okay? This isn't America where there's twice as many guns as civilians, all right? However, through the course of both of his games, he does end up surviving against a bunch of different fungus creatures. The Baker family are all infected with this fungus. He goes against a entity named Miranda that is really powerful with the fungus. Whereas most of our people in this list have to go up against, you know, some basic zombies, a few BOWs, you know, issues here and there. This motherfucker's out here fighting lichens, okay? He's out here without silver bullets shooting werewolves in the head. He's also got to go up against vampires. I'm starting to think this wasn't even supposed to be a Resident Evil franchise game, okay? Village was some crazy shit where he's going up against all kinds of supernatural beings. He's got a Frankenstein-like monster he goes up against. He's got a vampire. I'm thinking they were trying to make the Dark Universe in one fucking game in this franchise when they came to Ethan Winters having to survive. All right, guys. Fucking a vampire turns into a dragon. The vampire daughters are all insect creatures that if you freeze them, they go and die. Like, so many weird shit happens in Ethan's games. He survives so much. Hands chopped off, fuck it, a little bit of water will make it better. You know, shot, stab, bit, thrown. It doesn't matter what happens to Ethan, as long as he gets his body parts put back together, Deadpool style, he's gonna come back. All the way up until the point when, like Wolverine, getting his heart ripped out kinda fucked with him a little bit. You know, not so good for the body if you don't have the heart. Technically, all through this, he was almost immortal, like a lot of the other mold creatures at this point. For some reason, he was able to keep his sanity, unlike everyone else who would fall under the control of Miranda or any of the other lords and village. Ethan was able to keep his own conscious stream of thought, which allowed him to go out to find both his wife and his daughter in the 2 games. So he did survive a lot, but in the end he died, and that is why Ethan Winters sadly falls only into number 7. Side note, unlike the other dead character on this list, he has a slight chance to be resurrected through the mold that still exists in his daughter. Now we're moving on from everyone's favorite father to everyone's favorite sandwich, or master of unlocking. I don't know what you guys know her as, but I know her as Jill Valentine, our number 6 on the survival list. The woman that for some strange reason has only had 3 looks across like 6 games in a movie, alright? She started out as a shoulder pad wearing weird thing. Hey, did you guys know that Jill Valentine is actually the mechanics expert for the Stars team she was part of? Yeah, the vehicle mechanical expert. You know, the one who's ripping the engine out of the... Anyway, that doesn't have to deal with anything that she survived or her training. She has Stars training, so she's essentially a member of SWAT, if you will. She was also a BSAA operative, like so many people on here. I'm not going to go into details on what that is. Due to her shady past, she can unlock anything. She is a master of it, according to Barry Burton. She has survived the Spencer Mansion incident. Spencer Mansion 2.0, technically she survived. Raccoon City incident. She was brainwashed by Wesker and survived the entire situation behind Resident Evil 5. She was also survived everything that happened in Revelations. Oddly, Jill, even though she was the first character introduced as a female character, she does not have as many entries in the franchise as Claire, the second female character. However, things that she was notably done, like I said, she survived all those incidents. She was also very, very key in destroying Nemesis. In fact, without her, Nemesis probably have somehow escaped the city as a giant blob and tried to murder more people. But, you know, she face fucked him with a giant laser, so I don't think he's coming back from that. And even if he was, he got nuked afterwards. Again, she's fought a lot of the same BOWs that everyone else has fought, but her most impressive feat, more impressive than killing Nemesis, is the fact that she was able to take several punches from Chris Redfield and fight both Chris and Sheva at the same time in Resident Evil 5. You don't think that's impressive? Wait until we get to Chris's section. We're almost there. And then you guys will see why that is truly impressive. But due to the fact that she was controlled, she's had a little bit of trauma from that, and it took her a while to get back into the movie. She's only been in Death Island. I'm going to go ahead and keep her at number 6. A lot of these guys coming up, now that we're breaking into the top 5, have gone through a lot of the same stuff as the other characters, and I'm not going to go into detail about what everyone has gone into multiple times. If it's just, they killed zombies, they killed zombies, they killed bigger zombie. I'll make sure I tell you guys the important zombies they killed, if there's anyone in there that I have to talk about. If you wanted more proof that Leon is the #1 man in the entire franchise when it comes to the women he is put with, look no further than the fact that Ada Wong has been his love interest almost since the second game. And I can see why. She's been my love interest since the second game. So what does Ada bring to the table that all these others haven't brought? Well, she's a spy with some military training. When you first run into her, she says she's an FBI agent. We all know that's not fucking true. They don't put FBI agents in dresses like that. Again, like everyone else, she has survived shit like the Raccoon City incident. She has survived the events of Salazar's castle when it came to RE4, which, oddly enough, I think this is the first person I'm mentioning who was in Resident Evil 4. She was also in Resident Evil 6, where she went into some underwater investigations with a submarine. She took on C virus, she's taken on T virus, she's taken on G virus, she's taken on Ouroboros. She's also even taken on the Las Plagas due to the fact that she had a mission to go steal a sample of the Las Plagas. While in the Raccoon City incident, she managed to fall several stories and somehow survive. And unlike so many of our survivors, Ada Wong just seems to have an out in almost any situation. She is the character that will slink around, make sure that everything is taken care of, make sure that her man gets that rocket launcher to finish off the final boss every time. It's always fucking rocket launchers, but it's something that happens in this franchise. Her grappling hook allows for her mobility to be some top tier mobility and allows her to get to places other people cannot. But even when she's in a fight, she's willing to stand and take down some of the big enemies. She was the one who allowed Leon and Ashley to get away from Salazar while he was trying to mind control them by lighting him up with a submachine gun. She's the crafty and very cunning femme fatale character that so many games have, but so many more games could use. And due to the ability for her to survive pretty much anything, that's why I've put her at the number 5 position. You know what's better than a super spy that has a way in and out of every situation, or a guy who has pseudo immortality? A woman who's got basically just true immortality, not even pseudo immortality. And that's why Sherry Birkins is going to be talked about as our number 4 spot. I know some of you guys will be like, well, why is someone who's only playable in one game this high up on the list? And a lot of you might argue with me that she was being protected the entire time that she was in her own game. But let me give the argument for why she belongs in the number 4 section, okay? She did become a federal agent, has plenty of agent training, and I know that could be a bit down, you know, but whatever. But she has her regenerative abilities that she gets from the G virus that her father created. And they are some next level regeneration. Like, most people cannot take a helicopter propeller through the back and then just regenerate from it. And, well, Sherry does. In fact, her teammate, when seeing these abilities, almost shit his pants. So, like, impressive abilities, alright? She survived the Raccoon City outbreak as a child, while her father, which is a G virus mutated abomination, was chasing her down the entire time. In RE6, she went up against a lot, I mean an army's worth, of C virus infected units that were mutating with the ability to do things like have cricket legs and jump really high, have wings and fly, have armored carapaces where bullets couldn't get through. These variants of the C virus were some of the smartest tactically and strongest through mutations that we have seen out of any of the viruses. And throughout the entire game, she was constantly being hunted down by a variant of the tyrant known as the 𝐓𝐡𝐢𝐬. This thing was basically a 2-ton creature that was, while a little bit blind, was basically set to hunt down Jake from the beginning of the game. Not only did she fight this thing on several occasions, they dropped buildings, towers, all sorts of things on it, and it survived, but she was able to, in the end, help take it down permanently. With her regenerative abilities and the fact that she has survived several of the larger scale events inside of the franchise, I think that makes her a better survivor and have the capability and X factor to survive a lot more than a lot of the people on this list, including people further up on this list. But those people have actually survived more, so they're going to take that spot from her from getting any further. Well guys, we're about to break into the top 3, and do me a favor and break into this channel by throwing a like down on this video if you have enjoyed it so far, and subscribing to it. But without further ado, we're going to break into the number 3 spot with the one, the only, the motherfucking boulder puncher himself, Chris Redfield. In this man's 53-year lifespan, he has done so much with so little time. Again, not going into detail about it, but he is special forces. He was trained in STARS, Special Tactics and Recovery Squad, and he is currently a BSAA operative. And he's basically operating the North American branch of the BSAA himself at this point. The sad thing is, though, is because everyone else on this list has basically already been in something that Chris has been in, I've already told you everything this man has survived. So why is he number 3? Well, it's because he survived all of it. And he killed fucking Wesker right after punching that motherfucking boulder. One key thing about him, though, is if it wasn't for the movie Death Island, he pretty much went through the entire franchise as one of the only fucking people who have not been infected at all. And this is why Chris Redfield falls into the number 3 slot. Well, I told you you'd be mad. Leon is not number 1 on this list, but it's not due to his being able to survive or not. If we were not looking at anything else, then Leon would be number 1 due to the fact that he survived Resident Evil 4 with a useless side kick, giving him a massive edge over everyone else on this list. He's got your basic cop training. He's got special agent training, which consists of stuff like being John Wick for some fucking reason. He's also, like Chris, survived about 90% of the franchise. Together, both of these people have been in the most canon games and movies with 9, with Chris having 2 more canon games and Leon having 2 more canon movies. However, funnily enough, you can see how athletic these characters are just a little bit better in the movies than you can in the games, because it's like one giant hour-and-a-half long cutscene. So, but while Chris has things like punching boulders, Leon's feats are way more over the top. In fact, Leon is the only character in the franchise that is both light speed and a Shinigami from Bleach, because he dodged lasers and can run on air. Here are the scenes. Is that not impressive enough for you? Well, this motherfucker owns an indestructible Porsche. It can't even be blown up. So how are you gonna punch through that, Chris? Yeah. But in all seriousness, Leon is still very athletic at the age of 51, even while he was being weakened by the Raccoon City syndrome. Oddly enough, he is also probably one of the characters who has been infected the most throughout the franchise and keeps getting cured and coming back for more. Basically, with how prominent both Chris and Leon have been in the franchise, I could see you swapping these two around. Leon takes the cake though for me personally, just due to the fact that Chris tends to usually have a team with him, and Leon is that secret agent super spy kind of character who survives a lot more stuff alone. Or if he's not alone, he does have the massive negative handicap of a character that you'd much rather toss into a ravine than have to escort around. And that's why in the end, he's going to take the number 2 spot on this list. We've gone through super soldiers, super spies, suave femme fatales, people who can regenerate, people who get lucky as shit, people who can't die unless their hearts are ripped out. So who the hell could beat all of these people as a survivor? Someone who has the best abilities to actually survive these experiences. And, well guys, it's gonna piss a lot of you guys off because it's Jake Mueller from Resident Evil 6. As a cocky cameraman once said in Dead Rising, he's covered wars, you know. Well, Jake Mueller is a mercenary. He's been in a lot of wars in his very short lifespan, which gave him an extreme expertise in weapons and hand-to-hand combat skills. I'm not gonna beat around the bush. Yes, Jake survives all of the stuff in Resident Evil 6, which means C virus mutations, which means he survived the Javo, Wavo, Havo, however the fuck you guys want to say it, with those mutations from the C virus. He also survived tyrants himself. In fact, out of everyone on this list, other than Chris's boulder punching, he suplexes a 2-ton fucking creature in the 𝐜𝐨𝐬𝐿. If that's not super strength, I don't know what is. But let me ask you guys something. In the grand scheme of everything across all of the Resident Evils, what is the one thing everyone has to fear the most? That's right, being infected. You know what Jake has? Immunity to all viruses known to the Resident Evil franchise. When the real teeth of the entire franchise is basically ripped out of the mouth of the games due to this X factor, Jake Mueller sadly has to be the #1 survivor in the Resident Evil franchise. Sorry guys, it's just how it had to be. Well guys, that's the video. I know this was a long one. It took a lot of research to put this one together, so please become a member of the channel or do whatever you guys want to do. Come hang out with us over in the Discord. Give us some ideas for some videos you guys want. And remember, like always, be good to each other. See you in the next video. Peace.